Hey, what's up guys? So Escort has finally released a successor to their Max 360. It's called the Max 360 Mark II. And this detector is not to be confused with the Max 360 C Mark II that's been out for a little while now. The C version has the Wi-Fi capabilities, and they've essentially taken this detector, removed the Wi-Fi capabilities, and now they have the non-Wi-Fi version called the Max 360 Mark II. That said, now that I've got the detector on hand, I've noticed there's a couple other differences compared to the Wi-Fi version as well, so I want to talk about that. But essentially in this video, we're just going to do a quick hands-on look here at the detector. We're going to go over kind of what it's all about, how it fits into Escort's lineup, and what the improvements are compared to the original Max 360 that was released 8 years ago. Alright, and so taking a look at what used to be Escort's lineup of windshield mount detectors, they had the Escort Max 3, the Max 360, the Max 360C Mark II, the MaxCam 360C, and the Redline 360C. Now, over the years, Escort has changed platforms under the hood, and their newer generation of detectors all have the new Blackfin DSP platform, which is going to give them longer range, better blind spot filtering, and better photo radar detection. The Max 3 and the Max 360, on the other hand, both still use kind of an older platform under the hood. Additionally, if you take a look at the design language here of the Max 360, it doesn't quite match the look of Escort's newer generation detectors. Hence, we can go ahead and take out the now discontinued Max 360, and now we've got the new Max 360 Mark II. You're going to notice that now it looks, well, a lot more similar to the other detectors, plus it now has the new upgraded platform under the hood here, just like Escort's other higher-end detectors. And now taking a closer look here at the Max 360 series detectors, again, you're going to notice that this new Mark II has the new case design that looks a lot more similar here to the Max 360C Mark II, just with the more blue case design. The arrows across the front of the detector are now going to go all the way across the face of the detector, not just around the rear antenna like that. The previous version had the mute button right up here at the front of the detector. The new version, the mute button now moves a little bit farther back, just like they've done here with their other detectors. Additionally, if you take a look at the buttons here on top, you notice I've got quite a bit of fade here on the buttons. I first bought this detector when it was released back in 2015. In fact, the Max 360 was the first detector released that was designed to compete with the original Valentine 1. When Valentine's patent for the arrows expired here on the V1, Escort released the Max 360 as their first detector that now has arrow capabilities. Since then, Valentine has upgraded the V1 to the V1 Gen 2, and now we have a similar upgrade here from Escort, from the Escort Max 360 to the Max 360 Mark II. Anyways, over the years, I've gotten some button fade here on the detectors, and this logo right there, you can see it's faded off. I actually at one point had these buttons replaced, but then the new ones have faded off as well. I expect the kind of durability of the newer ones, if you can call it durability, to last better here, and the paint to last longer here with the new version. Additionally, this bubble here on the side of the detector, this was purely aesthetic. It's now been removed from the new version of the detector. And speaking of changes, Escort has also changed the USB connector here on the new Max 360 Mark II. It's the first detector now that they have that uses micro USB instead of mini USB like their previous detectors. I was a little surprised. I would have figured if they were going to change connectors, they would go to USB Type-C, but they're switching now to micro USB, which does have a slightly smaller connector than the previous mini USB. The mount has also been changed here on the new version. Kind of. The original version of the Max 360s had Escort's original implementation of their magnetic mount. You basically had the mount that would kind of like magnetically slide onto the detector like this, and then it could just kind of like pop off. However, the new versions of the detector have the, Escort mag mount. I actually really like this new mount. Basically, you just connect it to your mount like that, and then you've got a really nice, strong, solid mount. It's actually one of my favorite mounts for any of the radar detectors. That said, Escort did eventually update the original Max 360 to add in the Easy Mag mount, and so newer versions of the detector do have the newer mount, just like how they eventually changed the Bluetooth chip here inside the detector to give it Bluetooth LE, or Bluetooth Low Energy. So there have been some changes here to this detector, but now with the new Mark II version, there's a lot more changes in addition to like the newer Bluetooth chip and the newer mount, of course. And then taking a closer look at the newer Mark II versions here of these detectors, obviously, again, the case design is going to be really similar. The colors are a little bit different. And then besides things like the updated USB port here on the newer detector, there's also things like Escort has upgraded some of the cooling vents on the detector. So you're going to notice two more cooling vents here on the top, as well as if you flip it over here on the bottom, we've got the speaker right there, and then some additional cooling vents here on the bottom of the new version of the detector, the Max 360 Mark II. Now that said, it's really what's under the hood that's going to make the biggest difference here when going from the original Max 360 to the new Max 360 Mark II. Now, before we compare these two detectors directly, let's first talk about the differences compared to the Max 360C Mark II, because this detector has been out for a little while, and I know a lot of you guys are familiar with it at this point. Now, obviously, the biggest difference is going to be the fact that, well, the new version does not have Wi-Fi capabilities, and so if you don't have Wi-Fi in your car, for example, you can actually go for this version instead and save yourself $100 instead of getting the one that has Wi-Fi. Obviously, the case color is different and the USB port is different too, but that's not a huge difference in practice. Something else that I've noticed is the Max 360C has support for the Mesh Diffusion, one of the photo radar systems. The Max 360 Mark II that I'm testing currently doesn't have an option for Mesh Diffusion detection. I wouldn't be surprised to see that added in a future firmware update, but currently the shipping version here of this detector doesn't have support for the Mesh Diffusion. Speaking of updates, if you plug the detector into your computer and try to update it with Escort detector tools, that'll work for the Max 360C Mark II. It'll go ahead and load up the detector. However, Escort's detector tool software currently does not recognize this new Max 360 Mark II. And so for that reason, we're going to have to wait for Escort to update their update software so that we can update our detectors, which is going to be especially important because this new detector that doesn't have Wi-Fi, your only way to update the firmware or the GPS database that's built in is to do it here with your computer. Now, I just got my detector in yesterday, so I've just started driving around with it, and I've been having it connected to Escort Live to give me all of my cloud alerts and the speed limit display on the front of the detector. And for the most part, it works as expected, though I have noticed that there's times when the speed limit will show up on the face of the detector, and other times when I can drive down the exact same road and the speed limit does not show up on the face of the detector. It still shows up fine in the app, and the app says that it's connected to the detector, but for whatever reason, the phone and the detector are not actually able to communicate that information properly. That's one of the reasons why I generally prefer to use the Wi-Fi connection. It just works better, plus it adds some additional useful features compared to the Bluetooth stuff. But I'm going to try maybe switching over and trying the new Drive Smarter app instead. I've been trying with Escort Live, having some issues there, so hopefully maybe Drive Smarter has been updated and it can work better here with this Max 360 Mark II. Now, what about comparing this new Max 360 Mark II versus the original Max 360? What kind of improvements can we expect after 8 years of development? Well, the biggest change, of course, is the new Blackfin DSP platform that's used under the hood here, and there's 3 primary benefits. Number 1, we're going to be getting longer detection range. Number 2, we can see better blind spot filtering. And number 3, it's going to add improved photo radar detection. The original version of the Max 360 supported detection for the MRCD. It wasn't available initially, but it was added eventually via a firmware update. This new Max 360 Mark II supports both the MRCD and the MRCT. Though that said, I've been driving around with it and I've been finding it's been falsing to MRCT a lot, and so I've quickly disabled that setting, even though the detector does support it here with this new version. And speaking of the new Blackfin DSP platform, we've been seeing some issues in testing with these detectors actually detecting certain guns, such as the Decatur Genesis 2 Select, and basically having pretty slow response times to certain guns. I haven't tested it here with this detector, but it shares the same platform, so I would expect the same issues to be present here. I know Escort is continuing to work on improvements here across their new detectors. I've been talking to them about that behind the scenes a little bit as well, and I hope to see that they can actually get some improvements and get that released for all of us. But nevertheless, we can expect maybe some improvements here to performance, specifically in terms of long-range detection, though not necessarily in terms of responsiveness. That one aspect I think should actually be better on the original version of the Max 360. Speaking of responsiveness, though, the new version does add some new band segmentation options, including 4 different band segmentation options for K-band and 10 different segmentation options for Ka-band. And so fundamentally, we're going to be seeing some improvements to long-range detection, as well as blind spot filtering, plus it can detect some additional photo radar guns. The long-range detection might be one of my favorite improvements. This detector was pretty good when it was first released in terms of long-range detection, but since then, other detectors have come out that are offering significantly, noticeably longer range detection. A lot has happened in the past 8 years, and so I'm glad to see that now they have a newer version of the detector that is going to be performing closer to detectors that perform kind of in this price range. So the original Max 360 used to retail for $499, $500. It's since been discontinued. It's not available anymore. And so it's since been removed from Escort's website. Here's an old screenshot that I've got archived that you can see. So $500 here for the original version. And the new version of the detector here is going to be $599, so $600, basically $100 more than the original version. And for that extra $100, again, you'd be getting the longer range, the better false alert filtering, and the improved photo radar detection. Now, when the Detector was first introduced, I published an article on my website before I got a copy of the Detector, and at the time, there were actually still a couple copies of the original Max 360 on Amazon, so I posted about it on my website, also on social media. However, it looks like that's not the case anymore. Here's the page on Amazon for the new Detector, the Max 360 Mark II. And you'll notice right here, they actually have some buttons so that you can switch between different versions of the Detector. And if we go over to the Max 360, you'll notice that they don't have any more new ones. They only have used copies that are available here. And so at this point now, if you want the Max 360, the Max 360 Mark II is going to be the way to go. And this one's going to retail for $599. And same price again, taking a look over on Escort's webpage. Now, when it comes to the Max 360C Mark II, though, the one with Wi-Fi, this one typically retails for $699, so $700, $100 more than the non-Wi-Fi version, but it looks like it's currently on sale for $639, so just $40 more than the current non-Wi-Fi one. And I'm seeing that same price on Amazon now as well. So Max 360C Mark II, $639. They actually have some copies of the older one that's also been discontinued. The new one is actually $10 cheaper. So for my money, I think this is the way that I would go if you can find it on sale like this. I mean, I've got Wi-Fi in my car, so the Wi-Fi stuff is pretty handy. But even if you don't, you can have the Detector actually keep you posted of any updates, so long as you, say, park in a garage or park near your home, and the Detector can get close to your home's Wi-Fi. In that case, it can let you know when there's updates available, and you can actually update the Detector parked near your home. And if you do have Wi-Fi in your car, I do think that the Wi-Fi version would be the way to go just kind of by default. If you go for the non-Wi-Fi version, to update your Detector, you're just going to want to go over to Escort's website. They've got a page here for their update software, and then you're just going to want to go and choose your Detector. You can see currently the Max 360 Mark II is not listed. They just have the original one and the Max 360C Mark II. You can just download their update software, whether it's for Mac or for Windows, but currently it's not actually going to support the Max 360 Mark II. So we, again, are still waiting on an update, similar to what we have here for the Max 360C Mark II, so that we can get both Windows or Mac update software to go ahead and keep our detectors updated. And so this Max 360 Mark II, it's essentially the updated version of the original Max 360, just 8 years later. With the new detection platform, it's going to be giving us longer detection range. We've got better blind spot filtering. It can detect some additional photo radar systems, etc. It's, again, essentially the Max 360C Mark II, just without the Wi-Fi capabilities. MSRP is $100 less, though on sale things can vary a little bit. There are some other differences, like a different USB port on the side. This one can also detect the mesh diffusion, though I would expect, can't guarantee or anything, I'm not speaking for Escort, but I wouldn't be surprised to see mesh diffusion support added here, just like we have here on this detector. But realistically, besides things like a different colored case and whatnot, it's an extra $100 here if you want the Wi-Fi capabilities. If not, you can now save yourself the $100 and get the non-Wi-Fi Max 360 Mark II. For all the detectors that I talk about here in this video, I'll link to them down in the video description in case you'd like to pick one of them up. And so with that said, yeah, that's a look here at this new Max 360 Mark II. And man, these names are confusing. There's been so many times throughout this video where I've said the wrong name and I said Max 360C instead of Max 360 Mark II, and the naming stuff is a little bit confusing. But yeah, anyways, that's a look at the Max 360 Mark II. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys are doing great, and I'll see you in the next video.